Welcome to Beauties and Beasties, the independent pest podcast from the UK.
Hello. We have some technical issues right now because our Facebook has decided it is not connecting.
You just muted yourself, Alex. Alex is shouting at someone.
I'm shouting at my dogs and I'm trying to fix the internet at the same time, and you're not talking. You're meant to be filling, man. While I
was just watching you struggle. Just watching you struggle. Put a couple of posts up this week about wasps. They were quite interestingly received. I was interested that the actual useful post was less well received than the one where I fucked up and splashed fucking Vulcan all over. It happens, you know. We have the wins, we have the losses, don't we? There's also an undertone of it, of people not believing that it was Vulcan. Like, you're one of us, aren't you, Sean? I'm fucking not. Like, we've got Vulcan, that's what we've got. Although we're probably going to give something else a try because of this clogging issue, I think. You know, we'll see. Need to do a proper podcast on wasps now, don't we?
We do need to do a proper podcast on wasps, and while I fix our lines of comms, you did put that post out, and as you say, you did a post, you had your infrared camera, you're talking through it. Just tell us very quickly what you were using the infrared camera for, because that was a smart old bit of information, that was. How well did it work? What
was that? What was I using?
You had your infrared camera.
Oh yeah, the E8 Pro. That's an E8 Pro. I've got another video that I've done a couple of weeks ago on wasp nests, actually, which I was gonna tag a little bit on the end of the extra equipment we have. But that E8 Pro is not cheap. Like, I think it's about $2,500. That. So it's not the standard infrared that most people would have. It's I'm trying to get someone on from Hick Micro to talk about it. But there's two different things that make them worthwhile. One is how sensitive the IR is, clearly, but actually the other one is how sensitive the screen is, the picture it shows. So you can I've had two cameras with exactly the same sensitivity in terms of IR. One gave a much clearer picture than the other because the screen was better. So you just have to be very mindful that you are looking at. Can you not just click the Facebook thing and then click go live on it? Didn't work.
Not working. Nope. So I'm having to just do a manual post on
the stream was deleted on Facebook. Try creating a new stream or just remove this destination from the stream, then re-add it. I don't know what that means. Do you?
Oh, I do not. You keep padding, man. I've got this. I got
this. So wasp nests are they're coming in thick and fast now, aren't they? Asian hornets are starting to warm up, aren't they? There's more every month than there ever has been. So they're coming, like, just get ready for it. Yeah. And then Robert Moon, I think, got banned off a page, didn't he? The Asian hornet, whatever it was, which I thought was quite funny because he doesn't agree with them. So rather than listen to him, they've banned him. Although he is very vocal in his criticisms of people and places, you know, and I get why he's critical. That being said, one on Ben West. That being said, I do understand their frustrations as well, because Rob's telling everyone they're doing it wrong. But let's be honest, we wouldn't have them if it wasn't for France. Like, you know, Jersey wouldn't have them if it wasn't for France. Like, literally, France is like kicking them out. France wouldn't have them, you know. So it is what it is, and I think we just need to get over it and learn to kill them. I've got a lovely lady on this week. I've got Julia Pittman from BPC stroke Beaver stroke Oaken stroke wherever it is. She's come on to talk about DEI. before we start, I'm always interested to know what's your actual thoughts on DEI, Al?
Me. My
Yeah.
thoughts on this are, I think a lot of people misunderstand what DEI is. I think people look at DEI in the wrong context. People are probably view it or misunderstand it as being akin to, like, let's say, positive discrimination or something like that. It's trying to force people into a situation or an industry that don't necessarily want to be in through, these goodwill initiatives, and that's not what it is. I think DEI isn't necessarily about making more people want to do a thing. It's simply in my opinion, I believe it's reducing those barriers to an industry that people either perceive are there, that they may actually be there, or they may be perceived to be there. The point of DEI is
Do you think it does go down that? Do you think it does go down that route, though, where it does end up as positive discrimination or not?
I believe there have been some instances, and with all initiatives, there are instances where things have gone awry, and people probably hyperfixate on those and hold them up to all the world to say it never ever works. But I also think on the other side of this, there's probably a lot of times where it definitely has worked. There are industries where they have benefited from an increased exposure to a wider population that may not have known it even existed. And we've got a lot of, I say we. It has got a lot of extra talent, and it's worked as a result of that. So, your thoughts, just while I keep faffing in the background here.
Truthfully, like, it's the same old thing. Like, I feel like I have to pick up the other side of it and sort of argue against it. I've seen it firsthand be absolutely categorically fucking horrendous. Like, horrendous. I've seen the worst of the worst of the worst of DEI. I've never really seen it be beneficial the times I've seen a thing, but it's a study of one, isn't it? Which is always the worry, isn't it? I'm always very conscious that study of one is a dangerous place to be in. So, and you've always got to understand that your observations are your observations. That does not mean that they are the correct observations. It just means that it's yours, doesn't it? So I'm interested to get Julia on, have a chat with her, see how it goes, see what she thinks. She's done the PhD in it and stuff, hasn't she? But yeah, let's see. Should we get her on?
Yeah, should we get her on? It will be interesting to have her on and have her say and put some things to rest. Right.
Oh, you've got it on Facebook. You've got it on. You've got it on. How have you done that? Clever boy.
I'm going
to go and shout at my children. Stay there 1 second.
Okay, I will bring Julia on and we'll have a tell her. Oh, Julia, I'm so sorry. This is the first time that's ever happened, and I have no idea how to fix it. And I'm going to be brutally honest, I have no idea how I did fix it. So, with any luck, we have it on. We have all of our streams going now. But hi, Julia, how are you doing? Do you want to just introduce yourself to the group? Yes, introduce yourself to everyone and just let us know how you found your way to pest management. So before you were where you were, how did you find your way there?
Okay, so for people that don't know me, my name's Julia Pittman. I'm the head of customer strategy for Beaver Pest Control, now part of Orkin UK. For the BPCA, I sit on the executive board and I also chair the EDI committee. So we're looking primarily at recruitment and retention, which a lot of companies, especially larger companies, have a problem with in the pest control industry. So I joined the industry about 10 years ago, and I was actually Beaver's customer. So I worked in soft facility services, and we used to sub out our pest control to Beaver Pest Control. And I left that business, had a restrictive covenant, so I wasn't able to work in the industry for about a year. But Dave Lodge followed me around the world while I was traveling, and they held the job open, and a year later there I was. And that was 10 years ago.
Amazing.
Yeah,
10 years. Sean, you just missed the little introduction Julia gave us to how she managed to get into the industry. So then 10 years ago, when you managed to get into Beaver Pest Control, what was it like? And just probably to preface this, because this will preface a lot of the conversation we have tonight, why did you wait a year? You know, what was it about pest control, or was it Beaver Pest Control or Pest Control? But what was it that was so exciting that you waited a whole year for a potential job opening to work in this industry?
Well, I had a restricted covenant when I left. So technically it was quite strict. I wasn't allowed to talk to anyone, basically. And because Beaver Pest Control were our supplier, they were covered by the restricted covenant. So I couldn't work for them. So I went off and travelled for a while. I went to Cambodia and did some teaching English with street children. And Dave Lodge kept in touch and said, you know, come and work for Beaver, you know. And I said, I'll do anything but not sales. And then I ended up as head of sales. But, so, you know, they're a great sales team. And it's actually a really interesting industry.
This is it. It is a really interesting industry, but you don't kind of appreciate that until you have a foot in the door, do you?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you had that soft sell through your, as you said before, your previous job. But if you didn't have that previous job, do you think you would have ever found your way to pest management as a career?
No, like most people. You know,
why?
I just wouldn't have probably even considered it. I probably would have stayed in soft facilities, which was, you know, my original career.
But why? Like, if you hadn't have seen it through that, why would you have not considered it? What would it have been that made you not consider it?
It's a good question. And I think people tend to, I'm generalizing here, but I think people tend to stay in the industries that they are familiar with. I found it very difficult to move into another industry because all my experience was in soft facilities. Yeah. You know, and if I wanted to move now, all of my experience is in pest control. You know, it's unless you've got similar industries, sometimes it can be quite hard to move. But you know, when we think about bringing people into the industry, what I think we do well is we bring people into the industry that have connections. So, for example, you know, there's lots of fathers and sons. My daughter works in the industry now because, you know, she now works for Orkin. But I think what we do less well is bring in young people in particular that don't have connections with the industry. That's what we don't do particularly well. You know, but people that know the industry and have maybe relatives and friends, you know, they come into it and generally they stay.
So I was speaking to a recruiter many years ago now, who was a recruiter for animal technicians in scientific facilities. Okay, so a really kind of like squeaky bum kind of industry. You need to definitely be sure who you've got in that. And he said he had a huge problem recruiting because you didn't know who to look for, you didn't know who to trust. And actually, the majority of people working in animal technician facilities were exactly like as you mentioned there. They were friends, they were relatives, they were people that you knew well. Sorry, Sean, you've got a funny face on. Is that because am I breaking up or?
Figuring out, it's like obviously one of them things that you just keep going. It's just this is my thinking phase. This shit goes through my brain, so I try to process it and put it into boxes so I can sort of deal with it as it goes along. I'm thinking, keep going.
That's it. So, you know, this hugely sort of like divisive industry that is the animals in science industry. They were terrified of looking outside of the industry to find new people because of the risks of bringing them in. So you only brought in people you knew. And I think there's an element of that in pest management, that we're very worried about bringing people in because they'll either leave or we believe that they may potentially cause trouble for us or for the industry because of their misconceptions about what it is that we do. And so we naturally don't sort of like, you don't put an ad out in the yellow pages, which doesn't exist anymore, but you know, you can imagine putting that advert out on your local bulletin board saying I'd like someone to be a pest controller, because you'd be terrified of the people that turned up knocking on your door saying, "Where's my gun?" Wouldn't you? It would be a truly scary thing. So, and I think that's a lot about what DEI or EDI is as well, isn't it? It's preparing people for recruitment in a manner of speaking, and finding the right people. So there we go.
Yeah,
I remember
Sure.
I remember you said like the generation game, Sean, although you're too young to get that. I'm not. I know the generation game. I remember it quite well. I'm still old enough, yeah. So what, like, if there was an alien landed now, knew nothing and said to you, what is it? What's the good? What's the bad of it? Explain it to us. How would you give us that whistle stop tour of it?
Are you talking to me or Alex?
Yeah, you, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
You, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
when people ask me about pest management, because it does raise eyebrows, and I normally say, actually, what we do is protect public health. So,
Yeah.
you know, we have a responsibility as pest management professionals to make sure that those environments are safe for public, whether it's in, you know, hospitality or people's homes or whatever. You know, obviously you have got the other side of it where you're culling live animals, whether it's, you know, rats, mice, cockroaches, you know, wildlife. And some people can find that difficult, but I think it's regardless of whether they're male or female, if people don't like the idea of that, they're not going to be right for the industry, you know. But it is an important thing that we do. It's an important role we play.
And what would you say that if the same thing, if I asked the same thing about EDI or DEI, like aliens drop down now, right? The aliens doesn't have a clue about it, doesn't know the difference between anything. It just goes, what is it? What's the good, the bad, and what is it? What would you say? How would you describe it to someone?
Well, so I stay away from DEI because it's got a lot of bad publicity in the US. There is that slant, as Alex was saying, towards positive discrimination that's got a lot of negativity around it. But if we think of EDI, so equality, diversity, inclusion, if we think about that in terms of the pest control industry, so recruitment and retention, you've got 52% of the population are female. 4% of that population is within the technical areas of the pest control industry. So there's a huge pool of women out there, or young people, or people of ethnic minorities there that could be employed by our industry and aren't. So the question is, why aren't they? You know, and when I went out and did some research, so I did an MBA recently, and part of my dissertation was to talk to women in the industry that were already within the industry, so in technical roles, and women that were looking for jobs at a job fair. So the people that didn't know anything about our industry and were female, I asked them, I gave them a list of objections, and I said, which ones resonate with you and which ones don't? And, you know, as I said before, the people that don't want to work in dirty or unpleasant environments, they're not right for the industry. It doesn't matter if you're male or female or young or whatever. You know, if you've got an objection, an ethical objection towards culling, it's not the industry for you. But actually, the vast majority of women that I spoke to, 60% didn't have those objections. The objections they had was, it's full of men. I don't know if I'm going to be, you know, how's that going to work? Am I going to be safe? Am I going to be comfortable? The job might be too physically demanding, which I don't think it is for women in the main. They didn't know enough about careers or flexible working, but they're all objections that can be overcome by education and marketing.
Could that be through the questions that you asked, though, that you got those responses?
Well, I gave them quite a broad range I gave them 15 objections. So it was a really broad range, and said, tell me which ones you resonate. Now, obviously, they don't know anything about the industry.
Yeah, but when you give someone 15 objections and they take a pick out of it, then you're kind of guiding their hand on that. This week, I've actually done a bit of research for this. This week, I managed to ask 113 women 3 questions.
Mhm.
Would you like to be a pest controller? Would you consider pest control? If yes, why so? And if not, why not?
Yeah.
And I didn't get that at all. I didn't get one woman who said that they're worried about men. There were every 113 women, there wasn't one that said, I want to be a pest controller. I think it was 3 or 4. There was one that was like, who said they would consider it. And without a shadow of a doubt, the overriding thing was they either didn't want to kill stuff or they thought it was dealing with dirt. And that was it. It was just the proviso. It was the overriding thing. But I was very conscious that could be my questioning, and like I try to ask them at random. So it's like, how can 2 sets of data be so different?
I think if I'd asked those women, do you want to be a pest controller? They probably would have said no, but they would have said no because they didn't understand it. And what I did was I went through and said, well, actually, what are the main objections that women come up with? It's a physically demanding job. So when you're asking, do you want to be a pest controller? In their head, they're thinking, oh, that might be too difficult. Actually, that's a job for guys. Or I might have to, it's going to be dirty. It's going to, we're going to have to kill things. And all of these other, there's no other women in that industry. So no, I don't want to do it. Of course I don't.
It's interesting because I've picked up on 2 things that you both said here, which is number one, Julia said there's about 4% of technicians in the, at technician level in our industry that are female. And Sean, out of your 113, how many did you say would consider a job in pest management?
3 or 4. 3 or 4, yeah.
That's close to, 3-4% at that point, which is an interesting sort of like coalescence of information there. And the other one is actually a lot of the objections that you mentioned there, Julia, they're not specific to pest management. They are specific to a range of roles, not necessarily pest management. It's too physically demanding. We could say the same about a washing machine repair person. I can't lift up a fridge freezer. Yeah. So,
but is that not the answer though? That when you get a job which is deemed to be dirty, that it doesn't appeal to women, and that's why they're not there. That it's not that we're not recruiting them. It's not that we're excluding them. It's just it doesn't appeal to them the same way. Like mechanics, builders, plumbers, all that they do is a general rule. They're not interested in doing it. The same way that a man is a general rule. Men aren't interested in going and doing health and beauty or whatever it is. That there's certain jobs that appeal to certain people, and we're overthinking it.
I think that a lot of this is based on assumption, because all of the people both groups of people here have gone into this asking people that know nothing about pest control, and assumptions have been made. They assume it is dirty. They assume that the men working in it are going to naturally be scary because they kill things. They assume that the large part of the job is going to be picking up the fluffy bunny and, doing a good old Lenny on it. So with that, is the problem
doing a good old Lenny on it?
Anyone understands exactly what I mean. The point being, though, is that then not the core, the real sort of like boon of EDI, is that educational piece, letting people know what our industry is about at that point, and dispelling some of those misconceptions.
Yeah, but so for me, I think if you've got this is how my logical brain works. My brain is very logical, and I think if you've got an industry that has a recruitment problem and 90% of your people who are coming in are blokes of a particular age, over 30, why do you not look at the areas where you can know they're low-hanging fruit and you need to fill those spaces to keep the industry going? So why would you not go to the forces, the people who are kicking out, leaving the forces, doing this, going to your job centres, putting it in there, like actually standing there and trying to target where your efforts are going to be best returned, and then go from there. I don't understand what the fascination is with getting women into it, because as a general rule, they don't want to do it. Like, we literally tried for so long to get a female technician and just stopped trying, because we were constantly and habitually, of the ones that you thought would be good at it, like, they're just like, and we never, ever, ever once, ever, when we've asked blokes, I've got that response from that. I'm not doing that. That's disgusting. I couldn't kill that. They make me skin crawl. Like, blokes just appear to be better adapted for it in terms of their ability to deal with the dirt and the grime and the killing stuff. It just seems to be more entrenched in them, that it's more suitable from an outsider looking in.
Like,
You going to say something, Alex? Go on, jump
I was
in.
going to say, but both of my brothers, one, younger brother, Sam, graphics designer, absolutely lovely. He will get sort of rough and ready, go play in the dirt. But a lot of the people that he's friends with, that I knew, met his group of friends, when you go and visit the university, they would not have got down and in the dirt at all. Like, and so I don't think it's fair to say it's a male-female divide. It's probably more of a sort of like the place that you're in, the way that you have been living divide. I think there's plenty of blokes out there that would blanch horribly at being asked to picture. Yeah.
We're just talking about women, but actually it's a much wider conversation, because we're not getting young people into the industry either, by and large. So,
but have we ever got them in?
Sorry?
Have we ever got them in? Ever?
That's the whole point.
Yeah, but so what I'm saying is that for the last 100 years, that the recruitment has been males middle age onwards, and that's been the recruitment, and that's what's happening. The common denominator is that's the pool that you're going to go to. So I understand what you're saying about like getting young people in and stuff like that, but if it isn't right for them at that time, and it's something that people come to later in life, it's almost like we're trying to reinvent the wheel. And I think it's all right saying that in yours, you had this, don't you? That whatever it is, in the next 10 years, 50% of the workforce is going to retire. That's always been the case. It's always been the case, because we have older men in it, and we're always looking for and we're just banging this time and effort into it and beating this drum. But of me on my own, so I can't tell you any more than what we see, but we've just struck, like, we could not get a woman who was good into doing this job, and we tried for such a long time that it was like, give up. We were wasting our time and effort, and then sure enough, as soon as we stopped doing that, Dale popped up, best lad, bingo. Like, and I was like, this is like fate telling me where we need to be. It's not because we don't want them, it's not because they're not involved, it's not because they're not welcome, it's because we found that they just weren't interested.
And Julia, say it. I can see you gearing up. So
no, because there are women in the industry, and there are very capable women in the industry. So yes, while we've got a recruitment problem, why wouldn't we, why would we want to continue fishing from these small pools when we can widen them? It starts with adverts. So culturally, we have to be ready, because women, and I'm speaking about women in particular, but I could broaden it out into young people as well, but women in particular, there's no point in bringing them in if they're going to leave as quickly as they come, because they go and see a customer and they're subjected to some unwelcome advances. That happens. I've spoken to them, or they've got a customer and the customer asks for a male technician because they don't believe that women can do the job. So there's a lot of stuff at play here. But even when you think about, so when we write job adverts use masculine and feminine language. If you write a job advert using masculine language, then the studies show that men will apply, women likely won't. if you use a job advert using feminine language, both men and women will apply.
So are you saying if as I've been tested within pest control, that we'll use feminine language and we'll get like a lot more women applying for that role?
Well, I don't know that you'll get a lot more, but you certainly won't discourage them. Whereas if you write an advert, and our job adverts were like that, the first line on our job advert said, you must be able to use power tools.
Yeah.
And then we didn't get any women applying. Surprise, surprise. And we haven't got any women in our technical teams at Beaver. We haven't been successful there. We have a widespread within our business as a whole, but in our technical teams, no, we haven't.
Why?
I think culturally, when you, as a lone woman coming into a team of 50, 60 guys, that's, that can be quite daunting. So we have had women technicians and they've also left. Yeah. So we've got work to do. Definitely.
See, I remember being at the PPC event with you. And the thing which always stuck in my mind more than anything else was there was a board up. Remember the board? And you wrote down was about women in pest control.
Yeah.
Like people's feelings towards it. And there was 2 sexist, horrible, shitty comments out of 150 or whatever it was. Mm. But those 2 comments have been left by women.
Yeah.
Left by men. Every other comment that had been left by men was massively supportive. Yeah. Like massively supportive. All like, yeah, love having them, make great technicians, some of the best we've worked with are women, blah, 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 blah. And the 2 shitty comments were from women. And I was sitting there thinking, there's just something not clicking. There's something not working. It just didn't help me in any way, shape or form feel like we were heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree with you. In actual fact, this is my personal belief. We've got more issues with customers than we have inside our industry. As a barrier, because and funny enough, it from the research, it was a small pool of research, but the data that I got back suggested that it was actually women customers that had less confidence in female technicians.
Why is that?
Just generalization and perception.
Does this go back to the... Sorry, I'll go on. I've said a lot.
It's also probably a element of empathy and projection with that as well. But the female customers are probably more likely to not just empathize, but what's the word I'm looking for? Like project onto a female technician. And if they feel that they can't do it, then why do they feel that this other woman who's turned up to do it as well? Yeah. Whereas a man is a different beast, literally and metaphorically. So that might be one of the reasons that we see that. The other question I've got very quickly to ask you is, do you reckon, so there's been a couple of comments in here already saying it's very, not disconcerting, that's the wrong word, but it's very intimidating, probably a better word, walking into a room of 50 men when you're the only woman. Therefore, do you think that we've actually hit a tipping point here where it's nothing that we're doing other than the fact we've just hit a critical mass? We can't, there's just so many men in it because there's so many men in it. And actually, in this industry, in this job role, if we were to sort of like start again and start with 50-50, we probably wouldn't have this problem. But the fact that it's crept over time so far along to almost, 96%, then it's going to be very difficult to bring it back because it's a self-perpetuating cycle of unintentional intimidation just simply from an unknown environment.
No, absolutely. But what we can do is we can, as the women that are in the industry, and we've had these conversations, we can step up and be more visible, because where there are female role models, that definitely helps.
Is that why at the Pest Awards they always win loads of awards, but they only account for 4% of the fucking population?
No, it's because I'm good at writing bids.
It is, isn't it? It's like one of the reasons why I just giggle at the Pest Awards. I'm just like, oh, whatever. It's like the most DEI thing I've ever seen in my life. It's shite, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I kind of like them, but
Pete makes a good comment here, which is this an issue just with pest management, or is this a wider issue across a lot of the trades that we see in the UK?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you look at construction, in actual fact, construction have done a lot of work. The other industries that have done a lot of work, the fire service had a really good campaign, and the Met Police to a lesser extent. But they're all very male-dominated industries, aren't they?
I'm going to be dead honest with you, right? I was in the Met.
Sure.
I done a number of years in the Met, and I saw DEI at its absolute worst. At its absolute fucking worst. You did it when you went through training school. You done 18 weeks. You could be back blocked once. I think it was 5 colours: red, yellow. So you started in blue. You could go back to purple. If you failed purple, you got a test every week. You were out. And there was a Asian lassie in there, and they called her Rainbow because she'd been through every colour twice. She was fucking useless. They would not get rid of her under any circumstances. And they got her through, and they hailed it as an absolute success. With the support and the care, we've got her through, and blah, blah, blah. Like I say to anyone, like if that was your son who was working alongside her, and you get put in a situation where someone's going to try and stab you, or you stood in court and she can't remember what she's saying and she doesn't know the laws properly and blah, blah, blah. And you're looking at, you've got a very clever barrister who's going to throw you to the wolves, and all of a sudden you look like you're the defendant, which happens if you're not sharp enough. And they were like, they were singing it from the rooftops. And you had this total flip because of DEI, that they were trying their hardest to get women in. But the reality of it is, they are not strong enough when it comes to it. They would that's a lie. The vast majority are not strong enough. There would be some inspirationally brilliant women in there, but then the vast majority of them were just not good. Like good with the paperwork and all that sort of jazz. But like you had to get them off the street quick because they were just rubbish. Like, and that's not me being an arsehole. It's me telling you the truth as it stands. I'm
not a massive fan of positive discrimination. I think that regardless if you're male or female, you've got to have the skill set to be able to do the job. But what I'm saying is, if you have got that skill set to be able to do the job, then you shouldn't be treated less favorably than a man. That's what I'm saying.
But isn't there literally,
if you've got that skill set, you should be treated equally.
But isn't there literally laws to stop that you're not allowed to do that and you'd be prosecuted for it?
Yeah, but back to the real world, does that actually happen?
Yeah, but back to the real world. If I say we're doing a bird job on top of a hotel and all the steelwork's got to be carried up there, and you employ a lady who physically can't do it, like we're lucky we have 2 strong boys and I know exactly what they do. They would bite down and they would get through it for her. They would carry on.
But if you had a lad that wasn't very strong, would you put him on that job?
I wouldn't have him, love. I wouldn't have him.
If you were okay, but let's talk about pest control. I mean, arguably, you could say that, if you're trying to get into small voids, would a woman be more suited to that rather than a guy who might be larger? It male female doesn't really matter. It's whether you've got the skill set.
Oh, but sometimes they're right. It's heavy lifting. So, like, I don't know. Say we're doing drain repairs, and you've literally got to pick up your hammer and chisel, and you've got to pick up a pecker, and you've got to start braying out concrete to get down to it. Like my two laddies, Dale's 19 stone, Alice is about 15 stone. They can get through it. They can do it. Like, we try to hire a lady to do other types of work, and I agree they fit in. The point I'm making is, if I refused them off the back of that, would I be in the wrong? If that's all we were doing, if we were doing a lot of it and I required that, would I be in the wrong? Bear in mind, if I had a lad who was weak and couldn't do it, I wouldn't have him either. Yeah,
exactly. So I think it doesn't really matter if you're male or female. You've got to have the skill set to be able to do the job, right?
Yeah, but if I've got to start now writing feminine ads to get women to apply, and I've got to get them in, and I can't say to her, listen, and this is the real world. I can't literally turn around. You would get thrown to the wolves if you turn around to a woman employee and said, I'm sorry, you're not strong enough. You can't do this. There would be hell on. There would be absolute hell on.
Well, Alex, I think Alex is
I'm
dying
going
to
to
come in.
yeah, I'm going to be wildly reductive here, and like I'm going to really sort of like break this down. So number one, as you said before, let's say you've got two people of equal weight and equal skill and equal sort of like stature, one's male and one's female, and if you then sort of like consistently choose one or the other, then that's an issue. But it's and I'm going to use the word tool, and I don't mean to refer to people as tools, but in the event of this allegory, I will. If you've got a sledgehammer is brilliant for breaking up bricks. But if you want something to put a nail into a wall to hang a picture with, you wouldn't use the sledgehammer. You'd use another hammer. You'd use something with precision. So the point is not necessarily here that I wouldn't pick a woman because she can't pick up a drain cover. But at the same time, there are other instances where potentially their skill set, regardless of their gender, is more applicable to the job that you need it to do.
But how,
And
in today's day and age, how many pest controllers, realistically, bearing in mind, as you say, we're an industry which is bound by rats, lift and drain covers, like it's an everyday thing, isn't it? Like, and I know you say if they're the same size and the same weight and but the truth is, at the same size and the same weight, as a general rule, men are going to be at least a third stronger because of the testosterone and the way we develop. The density
what you're saying, you don't want men, you want bodybuilders. That's what you need. You don't need pest controllers, you need power lifters.
I just need someone strong enough to get the job done. I just need someone strong enough to get the job done. And I'm not, we would hire a lady because we've got that other work. The point I'm making is the vast majority of people need someone who can get all of that done. We're quite lucky, but I think what you would end up doing is if my first employee had been a lady, I would have probably struggled to have grown as much as I have because we've done work. So it wouldn't have been me being an arsehole saying I don't want her. Like we might have pushed into something else, etc., etc. But I just think that this whole industry is more geared towards men. Men want to do it. Men are more interested in it. It's not because we're arseholes. It's not because we don't want them there. We've seen that at the BPC events. Like, they don't want to do it, which is fine, absolutely fine. I don't want to be a nail technician. I don't want to be a nurse. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be a nanny. I don't want to do any of those jobs. Like, I've just got no interest in it, and the vast majority of them aren't.
This is it. And I'm going to say my own piece, and then I'm going to hand over to Julia to give a much better example. But you don't want to be a nail tech. You don't want to be a beauty technician. You don't want to be probably a race car driver or, picking something else there. But the point being is, what about the women or the other people in the industry that do want to be a pest technician, but feel that they can't because of thoughts like this? Okay. What about those that do want to join the industry? And I'm not saying we pull everyone in and sift them through the mill and let the ones that stick stay. I'm saying that the ones that want to come over that feel that they can't, that's where the problem is, in my opinion. That's where it really is. Not in picking the wrong person, in those people that want to be here but don't know how to get there.
But let's be fair, I love Adele. Adele's one of my close pals. Adele got into this because of her husband. She had no interest in it, didn't want to do it, and wouldn't have got into it if it hadn't been for Damien going off on his own, etc., etc. So we all have different paths to come in here. And I get what you're saying about a room full of 50 men and walking in. But there is that thing where at some point you've just got to get on with it. And you're right, we do need to look at the brilliance of the people who are in here, of Adele and stuff like that, who have done really well. The problem is it's got to a point where it feels like it's getting shoved down your neck so much that you're basically being told that you're a misogynist or you're this or you're that if you do not support DEI. And I don't. I just think the right people end up in the right place at the right time. That's my gut feeling. You will end up exactly where you are meant to be.
I think the way to think about it is, park DEI or EDI to one side and just think about it as recruitment and retention. All we're trying to do here is to bring the best people into the industry, make sure that they're comfortable in the industry and they're able to do a great job, and that we get the people with the best skill set, whether they're male, female, young, whatever.
That's not the message that's coming out, though, is it? That is not the message.
I mean, that's the message that I'm putting out.
that's definitely not the message that is being translated. The message that is coming out is there's not enough women in the industry. It's because there's barriers to entry. It's because of this. It's because of that. It's not like we want the best, because I guarantee if the message was we want the best and it was a straight down the line, we want the best, everyone will be behind that. But that is definitely 1,000,000% not the message that is coming out.
Well, obviously, we're using statistics to demonstrate the discrepancy between the, and I'm using women again. I could, talk about young people as well, but we're using statistics to highlight the fact that you've got this discrepancy between the general population and what's happening in our industry. So maybe that's why you feel like that. But it really is about making sure that we get the best people to push the industry forward.
Yeah, but the message is never we are not getting the best people. The message is we are not getting enough women. We are not getting enough young people. I've never once heard them say we are not getting the best technicians. Not once.
Where are you hearing that message? Just Sean, just for context. Who is delivering that message? Because of course Julia's been responsible for putting her messaging out there, and I'm sure she's thought about it long and hard. But where are you hearing this rhetoric of rhetoric's probably the wrong word because it's a bit too strong, but where are you hearing that messaging, Sean? Like where are you seeing
diversity, equity and inclusion? It's not called search for brilliance.
Okay, so not in our industry, just in the whole. I'm
talking about on the massive thing,
globally. I agree.
It is diverse. Yeah, it's not let's search for brilliance. I've never heard it called the Search for Brilliance Committee. Never once.
Yeah,
because everybody will back that.
Yeah, I tell you what, every time I hear about stories coming out of the US, I cringe because I think, this negative publicity, especially by the current US administration, has an impact on the work that we're trying to do, which is actually just about making sure that things are equitable for whoever you are. And there is studies that show that, when you have got a range of men and women in companies, they are 25% more likely to be profitable. There is hard data around that. There's a good reason for having mixed boards, and women in leadership positions is because companies outperform those that aren't. That's fact. That's data. But I do agree with you. There are people take it to the extreme. There was a thing on TFL the other day that I was quite cross about, where it was very much, I don't know whether they miswrote it or what happened, but it was very much about positive discrimination. And when it's like that, it just upsets people. And it's wrong.
Yeah. Jason's just put a thing on some of our best techs are females. Like that was literally when we went to PPC. That was literally what every single thingy. Nobody's ever. I've never met a male technician who doesn't want to work with a female technician. I've never seen them go like, "Oh, I'm not working with her," or blah blah blah. I've never seen it, but they're not here. They're like, I've never seen them be arsey to them or awkward with them or anything like that. And I'm certainly not saying that women shouldn't be technicians. We would love a woman technician. We would love a one. Because they, and it's great, isn't it? Because we can generalize when it's positive, but we're not allowed to generalize when it's negative. So I can turn around and say, as a general rule, the brilliant at paperwork, the dot the I's, across the T's, the more attentive, they do this, they do that. It's absolute, and everyone's like, yes. And you go, they're not as strong, can't carry as much steel. Oh, you can't say that. You can't say that. So we can, and that's why it feels like there is that push where it's like, and if you say that, not only if you say they're not as strong as us, and not only are you saying that they're not as equipped to dig out the drain as us, we're going to say that you're a bad person for saying that. You can say the nice stuff, but not the bad stuff. And I think that's a negative thing that we need to get over. We need to get to a point where we're brutally honest and say this is where we are at, but it just feels like it's being shoved down the neck. Like basically, if you're a white male, it's because you're a misogynist. If you're a white male, it's because of this, it's because of that. And Jason sums it up perfectly. Every single person I've worked with says exactly the same thing. Like they're more than happy, they're more than comfortable to have them here. Like the reality of it is, it's difficult to get them to join because of they don't want to do the job the same way I don't want to be a nail tech. That's how I see it.
The thing is, there's as a woman, there are things that you have to be more cautious of, maybe, and I'm talking about my own personal experience here, than a guy. Okay, so if I'm out late at night, or I tell you what happened to me the other day. I was in Ministry of Sound, and they gave me a cup, and the cup had a lid on it to stop people spiking your drinks.
Yeah.
And I just thought, and they did it automatically. You didn't have to ask for it. They automatically put that on. So I think when you are female, you are conscious that around safety.
But is this internal bias not what's leading us to believe that the reason why women are not in pest control is because there is barriers to entry that they're not there? And I listen, I get it. I absolutely understand. Women are not as strong as men. If, men prey on women, women don't prey on men. I get that 100%. I just don't feel like it translates into the recruitment. I don't feel like that's the reason why we are here. The reason why we get lots of older men applying for this job is because they find it more suitable. It's not because we're doing anything wrong. It's not because we're an arsehole. It's not because we're misogynistic. It's not because any of that. It's because that's who want to do this job.
But is that because we don't? Is that because there's the perception around the industry? Could we market the industry better? Could we educate could we carry out education around the industry? Could we make it more attractive to people other than the kind of stereotypical pest controller?
But if I go back to the logical thought process of how my brain works, right? Like, we've got a problem with recruitment in the industry. If I said to you, you're going to set up a pest control business on your own tomorrow, there's loads and loads of rat jobs out there, and 3% of them are cockroach jobs. I know what you should do. You should go and target the cockroach jobs. You'd be like, that's silly. It's a waste of time. Like, use your common sense and target where you are going to get your best rewards. And if we want more technicians in it, if we get to a point where we're flooded with technicians, then absolutely. But we're not. We are struggling, aren't we?
I think if you keep on doing the same thing, you get the same results.
Yeah, agreed.
And we're struggling in the industry to recruit. So therefore we have to, by definition, we have to do something differently.
Listen, I'm all for that. I'm all for testing. I'm all for testing, as long as the testing's done properly and it's not done blindly under the assumption that the reason why we don't have them is because something's wrong, and it's not because they don't want to do the job.
Alex?
I would say that basically, if you like, someone mentioned before, careers advice, careers officers and everything. If you took 100 young people right now, or just 100 people, not even that young, 100 people, 20 to 30, okay, and said, right, what job do you want? Give me the first 5 jobs that you would like when you're older, and here's a bit of paper, just as an example. You don't have to pick these jobs, but just as an example of, here's some jobs, and there was 30 jobs on that list. Now, if you didn't have pest control written on that list, right, am I back?
Yes.
Yeah.
Start again, Alex. Start again. Oh,
he's gone
completely. Did you out?
We're on the same. I feel like we're on the same page.
Yeah.
We we want the right people in here. My whole issue with it is that the message that is coming out, and maybe we are suffering from other industries, but in the same breath, I know you mentioned the fire service. I watch again. It come from America, but it came out of her mouth. I seen a female firefighter who had gone through the ranks, or was, and they were talking to her, and she said, I think it's important that when I turn up, people see someone who reminds them of them. And then they were like, what about if you can't carry a male out of a burning building? And she said, I would say if your husband's got himself in that position, it's his own fault. Well, she didn't say it's his own fault. She said some words to the effect of, basically, he's got himself into a silly position, hasn't she? A couple of weeks later, we had the wildfires where the whole of Hollywood was wiped out. And you're like, is that DEI gone crazy? Like, how do we stop it getting to a point where, you know, and the reason why, I watched one the other day, Met police officers, there's two females trying to chase someone, and literally he just walked away from them and they couldn't run after him. And I saw that when I was in the police. It started off, I think it was 7.5 was the bleep test. And then by the time I'd left, it was 5.4. And what they'd done is they'd brought the standards down so low so that women could get in. There's no getting around it. It was to allow women into it. That we'd got to a point where all you had to do was a brisk walk, you know. And now you go and see the police in London, and they are useless. They are absolutely useless. There's a handful of good ones, and the rest are absolutely unfit, unuseful. Couldn't chase, you know, couldn't catch sleep. Like, and you're like at what point and how do we stop that from happening?
Yeah, I mean, I can't comment on the Met Police and their bleep test. What I did see about with the female firefighters in the UK is they had to go through the same standards as the men. Now, whether they changed those standards, I don't know.
They did. They dropped the standards. And I actually know two female firefighters. One of them, Sally, is absolutely brilliant. She can do like 300 push-ups, like really got to grips with it. And the other lady who they couldn't get rid of, she openly told me, she said, I'm not liked at work. I said, and Sally was loved on the same station. I said, how come they don't like you then? She went, I'm not very good at my job. I was like, why? She went, not strong enough, I can't carry anything. They're always got to carry it, they've always got to hold us up. Like, she knew that she was not physically capable of performing the way they were, and they'd got to a point where it had become so detrimental because they knew that they were carrying it day in, day out, same wages, same everything, you know. And it's like, what's going on here? And it just made it worse. And I thought, well, actually, like, if I was a woman, like if Sally had been in there on her own and you'd walked in, I'd be like, yeah, I could be part of this.
But I'm sure there's guys like that as well, because what we're doing here is we're saying you haven't got the skill set to be able to do the job because of your gender. But I'm sure that that's the same with men and women. No,
I think what they're saying is we're going to drop it. We're going to drop the standards in order to make sure that we can get women in, and then we'll say that they are the same. But the standards have become so low that you are no longer functioning as a proper unit. And I've seen it happen over and over again. I've literally witnessed it firsthand. And you daresn't open your mouth, because any police officer who was serving at that time who opened his mouth would have been immediately got rid of. Immediately. They wouldn't have looked and went, because the top brass don't care. Do not care one iota that you're turning up with someone who's unfit, and there might be they're like, no.
Yeah. Well, I'm not suggesting that we drop the standards in pest control, and I'm not suggesting that we take on people that don't have the skill set to do the job. What I'm saying is that if you've got the skill set to be able to do the job, and you can pass the RSPH level 2 or 3, whatever it becomes, then regardless of whether you're male or female, you should be treated equally. That's what I'm saying.
Just to go back to it, there is literally laws that stop that from happening, isn't there?
There are.
Well, no.
There is. There is.
I mean, there are.
Criteria, for recruitment.
There are, but the reality is that there's still a pay gap. You know, they reckon, I was reading the other day, they reckon it will take 130 years before that pay gap closes. You know, this
is something I don't understand. When they talk about the pay gap, again, isn't there literally a law that if me and you if me and you are employed at the same place, and you have 10 years service and I have 10 years service, and we have the same qualifications and we are the same role, that if you get paid less than me, then that's against the law, isn't it?
Yes, if you know, but quite often you don't know, do you? Quite often you know, it was on the BBC, wasn't it? Their female presenters got paid far less than the male presenters. You know, there was the big hoo-ha about that. I mean, it happens. You know, one. I was reading some stats the other day. 1 in 3 women have been asked in interviews about having children. That's illegal in the UK as of 2018. But you still get asked. You know, it's not uncommon for women. You know, if I said to you, if I'm interviewing you, and I said to you, how do you balance your work with being a dad?
I promise I'm not being antagonistic when I say this. I would love to answer that question, but I absolutely get why that would be seen in a different way if you're asking a woman. Yeah. There is a different thing attached to it, isn't there? There's a whole different, and yeah. I agree with you that question shouldn't be asked. But again, you know, if you've started your business tomorrow, right? You Julia Pittman, start your business tomorrow, and you go and you take a young lady on. And you've got to, you know, and then she goes pregnant, and you've got all that work. Where do you stand? You've just got to suck that up and deal with it, don't you?
Well, I mean, there is legislation around that, and that's what we asked, isn't it?
Forget about legislation.
Are you planning to have children? You know, it's a common question asked to women, not to men.
Yeah, because men don't take the time off, do they, as a general rule?
But it's
if men took 9 months off and women took 2 weeks off, I guarantee you now that the narrative would flip straight away. They're not doing it because they don't want women. They're doing it because they stand there thinking, like, this would cripple our business, would absolutely cripple our business. To lose a technician, you know, in the middle of summer when there's 2 years, you could literally sink a business. So you're trying to provide, you know, you're trying to keep the roof over your head. You're trying to keep the bills on, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes when it's asked, it's not right and it's against the law, but they're not being arseholes. They're not standing there. And if you turn around and said, you know what it is? I'm going to take 2 weeks off and the husband's going to look after them. He's a stay-at-home dad. They'd be like, bingo, got the job. Bingo, got the job. Like, it isn't that, is it? It's the problems that it arises for a small business might be different for your big boys, mightn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I went back to work 3 days after I had my daughter. Yeah. So, you know.
But is that why you've succeeded?
Sorry?
Is that why you've succeeded?
Potentially. I think I've been more successful in work than because when you're juggling things, when you're successful in one area, you're probably less successful in the other as a woman. You know, I can't be in 2 places at once. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah. But this is what I'm saying to you. Like, people think it's picking on you because you're a lady and what have you, but you've just summed it up. Like, you went back to work 2 days and you're absolutely flying. Like, you're well respected in the industry, you're doing incredibly well, etc., etc. Like, it's not, people aren't picking on you because you're a lady or because you're pregnant. Like, you've literally went through what most men would go through in this industry to get to where you want to be. And you've got it and you've dug deep. And as a result of it, like, you're doing incredibly well. But that might not be for every woman, might it? You know, my missus would have hated that. She would have hated it. Like,
I mean, the point is that if women want to do it, they shouldn't be discriminated against. You know, and they might not want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they don't want to go back to work so quickly, and that's fine.
So when does it get to a point where, say you are a single, you start off on your own and your first tech as a lady, and she goes pregnant and it absolutely cripples your business? It's absolutely unfair, isn't it, to turn around to someone and say, sorry, like, all right, sorry, like, you done it. Like, yeah, I'm looking at it from my point of view. Like, when we got to a point where we could have almost coped with that, then we were absolutely actively looking to employ a woman at one point. So I don't want you to think that we don't want them in there. We can see the value of having a woman in our team. And it's interesting that all the bigger ones can absolutely see that value. But at the grassroots level of people who are 1- and 2-man bands, it could be something that absolutely cripples your business.
Alex?
Go on, son.
So is the problem here not necessarily the fact that your female technician is going to take 9 months off, go and have a child and start a family? The actual problem here is that we have a government that doesn't fully support and subsidize people to achieve that, and the burden of responsibility is put onto the business in order to carry that person through. Because a couple of my friends have got pregnant and had children, and you have a limited amount of support from the company, and then it very rapidly drops off to statutory, and it's almost nothing at that point. And it's very difficult to try and do anything. So actually, so what you're saying there, not the sort of like, the burden has been put onto the business to continue to look after what is, as you're describing here, a non-functional member of staff, when in reality, if the government provided more support, there would not be that burden. You would not feel bad about that, and you would happily sort of like welcome that staff member back, because you would have had no loss other than sort of like a bit of a busier billet for 9 months and having to hire some maternity pay. So the problem's not DEI at that point, or men or women.
I've got to be honest, I don't think
lack of support.
I don't think it's a government's responsibility to look after your kids. If you have kids, it's your responsibility to look after them. That's my gut feeling. I really do believe that. I believe men should go to work and work hard. And if your missus wants to have that 9 month off, you should do it. Like we got very little. So
you believe that if someone goes on maternity leave, then from the day that they leave, that's all pay stopped from business, from company, and from social security?
No, I didn't say that. I said
I
didn't say that. I said you should look after your kids. And I think the reliance on the government and saying that they should get more and more for, like, if you're saying that they should get more money, more time off, I don't believe that's correct.
That's not what I said at all. I said that you're complaining about the fact that for that sort of like maternity leave that they're taking off, the company has a responsibility to keep paying them a wage for a...
No. Sorry, no, I've made myself clear. It's not that. It's the work that won't get done, or that the stresses that it puts on it of not having someone there. So what do? You can't go out and hire someone else for 9 months, so you could, but then that leaves you in all sorts of things. You've got to train them by the time you've got yourself turned around. You're standing there, and if you're a small one-man band, to lose someone like that in that time frame would be absolutely... It could literally, if that rolls your business, then it's unfair, isn't it?
I think it's definitely, I would say it is more difficult for smaller businesses. I'd agree with you there, but I know, so Barricade Pest Control, for example, which is a smaller business, pest control business up in Edinburgh. So Rebecca is my vice chair on the EDI committee, and she's also very pregnant at the moment and running a business, and does so. And I think, there are a lot of women out there actually that do manage to juggle it. It's not the end of the world if someone has a family as well as be involved in a business.
No, I agree. And I think, again, like you and Rebecca, and the problem is what we're doing is we are believing that the way that you and Rebecca behave in these positions is the way that the vast majority of women would behave. Rebecca's incredibly involved in Barricade, incredibly involved in that, and we'll get up and get going. I think we've got to be totally honest with ourselves and say that the vast majority of technicians, where if you got them and they got pregnant, they're not going to come into work and graft like that. Yous are physically involved in this, and yous are there. So, it's like if you import a load of ladies in here and tell them it's great, and like, there's no getting around it. Them smaller businesses would hurt. And again, the message coming out is that if you don't employ them, it's because you're a male chauvinist. It's because this, because that, It's not fair, is it?
I think you've got to do the right thing for your business, but
you're not against the law, isn't it?
Obviously, if you're discriminating, then obviously that's illegal. But I think that you choose the right person for your particular circumstances, whether they're male or female. They have to have the right skill set and be able to contribute to your business.
Agreed.
And I think we all agree on that. But to cycle back round to the sort of like what we are here to talk about, which is EDI. So how does EDI then, to bring this back to that, how does that focus on, where does that come into this? If we're all in agreement that you hire the best person for the job, how does EDI then factor into that? Because again, we're sort of like still circling around these same broad misconceptions as to what EDI is. So how does EDI fit into this conversation we've just had?
So We are looking at the segments. So we're going to look at young people and how we encourage young people into the industry. We're going to be looking at, we've got some exciting projects coming out of the EDI committee over the next couple of months. So, watch this space. But it's geared around just making sure that we tackle the perceptions that are the general perceptions of the pest control industry, which may or may not be negative to the outside world. We know what a fantastic industry it is. I don't believe the outside world does. So, let's educate the outside world. Let's see if we can widen out the recruitment, the talent that we've got in the industry, regardless, because we need to do something. Otherwise, we're going to be sitting here in 5 years' time having the same struggles around recruitment. But I will have retired by then, so because I'm one of that 40%. So you won't have to listen to me anymore.
I agree. For me, this whole conversation is around visibility and public perception of our industry, and getting people to understand what we are, what we stand for, and what we're about. And it's less about applying labels to doors and more about just getting shit done and with the right people. But with that, from outside, where do we go next with this? What can we do as an industry? Because I hear Sean, and I feel him a lot when you say things that we sit here and we are all very sort of like complimentary of our colleagues, male or female, or it doesn't matter. We're a very supportive industry, and yet when we listen to the global narrative, you feel as though you are being either diminished or sort of demonized in a way. So what can we do as an industry together to help this go forwards in a way that is not, as I think someone put out before on one of the adverts as we were doing this, Wokey McWokerson. So what can we do?
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, there are some really negative labels that I think actually do a lot of damage, because generally speaking, people want to bring people into the industry, but all the sort of like the woke label and the DEI and all the rest of it and the negative connotations, they're just damaging, really. They just make it they just make it more difficult to achieve what we're trying to achieve.
And what are you trying to achieve?
Well, again, as I said, we're trying to broaden out the talent pools and bring the best people into the industry. That's it. Simple as that.
What can we do then? What can we do? What can Sean and I do?
We are going to be having some projects come out of the committee, out of the BPCA, which we'll be asking for support with. So I can't talk about them just yet, but it's going to be in the next couple of months. So as soon as they come out.
Do you think pest controllers will get behind you bring out your things and you want pest controllers to get behind it, but do you think if you have a DEI, if this has come from your DEI or EDI committee or whatever it is you want to call it, where there is a presumption that you're basically being told that you're the problem, that they're ever going to get behind it?
I don't think we've got a big problem in the industry. I really don't. I think we've got more of a problem outside of the industry. But all of the people that I speak to I don't have a problem. All the people that I speak to in the industry are broadly in agreement with the fact that we've got a recruitment issue, and it makes sense to be able to try and attract as many people as we can.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, and I agree with you. What I'm saying is, if 96% of your population is white males, and this comes from a committee that says yous aren't hiring enough ladies, we want yous to get behind us and help. Do you think, can you reasonably expect them to turn around and go, yay? Because I think they'll just turn around and go, you're on your own, mate. It feels like, and right or wrong, it feels like you've been vilified from as soon as it says EDI and DEI and stuff, to a point where it's like, I wouldn't get behind it, and I certainly wouldn't get behind it after I saw those two comments from those two ladies. It really put me off. And and if I'm totally honest with you, one of the things I wanted to ask was, whatever happened to the two women who wrote those comments?
I don't recall who it was. Actually, I know what you're talking about, but I don't recall who wrote them.
Because it's like, this is the whole thing, isn't it? It's like if two blokes come up and had wrote a shitty comment on there, I guarantee you everyone would know who they were and they would have been pulled up on it. But because it was women who wrote about, like, and wrote two horrible shitty comments about other technicians, it was like, and it was just let slide. No, nothing ever come of it. And I remember thinking, why do I want to be involved in that? Why do I want to be involved in that?
You know, people have their opinions. There are just as many shitty comments from guys as there are from women.
And there would have been, but there would have been pulled up on it, wouldn't there? If I'd have been stood on that stand and some bloke had wrote about fucking women being useless or something, I definitely would have turned around and went, that's wrong. And I would have definitely pulled him up on it. And I would have said, I worked with a woman once, don't care, mate. Ridiculous. Like comments, but it was never picked up on, was it? It was just kind of allowed to go. And their opinion, that was never challenged. It was like, that's what you've got to expect. And it's not right.
At the time, I was interested in getting a broad range of opinions rather than challenging those opinions, because I think we can challenge those opinions through education. But I think you have to, I don't think it's right to shut down those opinions, because you have to know what people are saying, right? How can you deal with it if you don't know if people are hiding how they really feel?
Yeah, I guess as long as you were happy for men to write shitty comments on that board, I guess I'm putting my own personal opinion on there that I would not have been happy with men writing shitty comments on that board. Is 96% of the population of technicians that I've met would have said the same, and their comments were the same. So yeah, as long as you're happy to have it both ways, as long as it's fair, then I agree with that. Yeah,
because I think it's important that we get out into the open what people really think.
Agreed.
Because when you know what people really think, then you can decide how you challenge that and how you educate. Because it is around education.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
The thing is, that's why I love doing this podcast. It's not a narrative; it's a conversation where and I understand it probably doesn't do my standing and my business any good, because I always get asked the bad questions, don't I? I always get to be the challenging one because I don't like doing it. But the truth is, unless we have these conversations, like, nothing improves, does it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. 100%.
I don't know. Here's a question. Do we have more lady techs now than 10 years ago? Has it always been?
It's a good question. And we don't really, one of the things that we're trying to do at the moment is get accurate data. So we have got some data. There are more women now than there were, but I couldn't give you factual numbers.
Is there any way of finding out, because I've always been interested in this, if the percentage of young technicians who we take on, what percentage of them stop in the industry? Again, of one, if I'd have got into this industry at 19, 20 years old, I wouldn't be in it now. I know I wouldn't. My life would have went in different ways. I would have found something else. I probably wouldn't have. Do you know what I mean? I'm only in this industry because I came into it at the right time, and I'm absolutely convinced I'll be in it till the day I die. But it's because I was at the right point in my life. So again, like, if we push to get loads of young people in, but the young people are only stopping 5-6 years, and all of a sudden we're building up like, we can get these young people from college, blah, 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 and you put your training in and and it all goes wrong. Is there any way of monitoring or knowing how long young people stop in the industry for and what percentage of them stop?
I think that's a fallacy. Just while Julia thinks of that, because if you have someone who is coming into this as a fourth career, a late starter, they're going to be in the industry for 10 years. A lot of them are in the industry for 5 years anyway. So to say to bring someone young in, and they're only going to be in here for 10 years, actually they're serving exactly the same amount of time that the majority of pest managers do as a end stage career before retirement. So actually, it's the same time.
Yeah, but I think the difference is if you come in at an older age, you leave it literally because you're finished, aren't you? Like if I'm going to take someone on, if I'm going to pump that time and effort into them, if I was going to put my hope and faith in a young person, and I took Ellis on at 21. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying I wouldn't. I want to know that person sticks, and I want to know what the data says about how well they stop within the industry. Because truthfully, I don't think we don't employ young people because there's something wrong. I think we don't employ young people because they don't want to do it and they come in, but later on. My worry is that what happens is we start pushing for young people to get them into it, and they stop a very short period of time. And you may have precluded someone at a later date from joining the industry. Do you know what I mean? Like I had to go at that when I was 19, didn't like it. And then he gets to 40 and he's like, no, I didn't like it. If he got into it at a later date, 30-year-old, 35-year-old, you might have got the 20, 30 year out of him rather than 5. So is there any way that we can monitor the retention of people based on age?
I mean, the only way we'd be able to do that is, I mean, it's company data, isn't it? It's a good question, though. Yeah, I don't know how we would do that actually. But I mean, sorry, go on.
I was going to say I'm very data driven and stuff like that. Like Alex is the data guy and he loves graphs. But if we make decisions based on that, I want to know where I'm at. Like I think, all right, yeah, I want to know that we are doing the right thing. We do that, and this is where I think people struggle with DEI. Whenever we do anything, we usually do a load of testing before we go ahead with it. But with DEI, it feels like it is a very personal thing to the people who've pushed it forward, who are going to continue to push it forward no matter what. I remember speaking to Scott about it, and I said, what if you do all this and you don't get anyone? He said, well, if we just get one person, that's enough, isn't it? And I was thinking, so you put all this time and effort in you might get one person. Like, if you're going to put all this time and effort in, what about if we could get 100 if we put it somewhere else? If we could test it and find out and go, actually, this is the sweet spot. This is where we need to be. Everybody put your thinking caps on. This is your target audience. This is your target customer. He's called Ken. He's 35 years old. He lives in a rural area. He's got an IQ of somewhere between, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, all right, where do they hang around? All right, well, they hang around fishing clubs. I know there's loads of them there. They hang around golf clubs. Let's start advertising there. They hang around here. They hang around there. And you're like, right, okay, let's have a look at that. I have incomes of between this and that. Right? So when it comes to stuff like that, I think you could very easily spend years and years and years looking at stuff. And if you don't test it first, find out that years later that you're sitting there and you've wasted a load of time and you've missed out on getting another 100, 200, 300 people in the industry who should have been in there because you are looking in the wrong place. That's my worry with it.
Well, I mean, when we're talking about young, I mean, obviously we're not talking about 17-year-olds, because obviously, if they're driving vehicles, we've got insurance issues. So even, if you think about the Pest Management Awards, the criteria for Young Technician of the Year is under 40. But I think it's now under 35. So, young is relative.
Almost. I was almost there. I could have gotten it.
Honest with you, I love that. I love that because it's specific. Do you know what I mean? It's specific to us. And people go, under 35. Like, yeah, because, that's what it is. Like, we're going to deal with it with what we've got in front of us.
Yeah. I think when we're talking about young people, we are talking about sort of, mid-20s to early 30s would be considered young. I mean, that's considered young in the pest control industry, let's face it. You only have to go to any industry event and you can see the demographic, can't you?
This is like the thing, isn't it? It's like we're not inviting young people in, and Peter makes a very valid point about insurance. Trying to get them insured on a van, trying to get them insured is it can be almost crippling. But if you don't employ someone because of their age, then you can be in trouble, can't you? If they had 2 people exactly the same, one was 30, one was 21. I said, I'm going to employ the 30-year-old because he's a bit older. Then you can end up in problems. And that's where the DEI thing starts to fall down, isn't it? 'Cause it's like, I'm not picking him because he's 30. I'm not picking him because I have an age issue. It's literally because you're going to cost us $6,000 insurance every year on a van. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah, there are certainly challenges to overcome. You know, the insurance company situation is just so frustrating because we miss out on young talent because we're stopped. The insurance costs are just prohibitive. So without doubt, there's challenges. Yeah.
So I know I've kind of fucking railroaded this one, Annie, because I love out like this. It's right on my street. But Alex, question. I want to ask it again, but I want to ask another question with it. What can we do to help? But what can the EDI or the DEI committee do better to help us, like, get behind you?
I think so. Culturally, we need to have a supportive culture. So I'm not saying, you don't have to get the pom-poms out, but don't go the other way either and make it a difficult culture to work in. If we're thinking about women in particular, for example, just to know that you're treated equally and you're respected within your workforce is good.
Okay.
So as men, and as men, you can call out, when other, maybe you've got a customer that's, being a bit shitty to a female tech, you can be supportive there. It makes a big difference.
And what can the DEI, the EDI committee do better to?
Well, as I said, we've got some projects that are coming out fairly soon, within the next couple of months, that will help around the education piece for the industry to try and change that perception. So that's the work that we're doing behind the scenes, which will be coming out very soon.
Bingo.
Watch his face.
It's like a tantalizing hook to finish the show on, isn't it?
I'll put it in my diary. I can't wait.
Are you going to be the first to see it, Sean?
No,
I said you'll be the first to see it. I'm going to ring you up.
Yeah. I'll be. Yeah.
So
Let's see.
We're coming to the end of this now, and while we've got a couple of minutes left, we do a couple of things. I'm sure you've seen this podcast before. So before we ask you the big three questions at the end, I suppose it's only fair that, do you want to ask Sean and I a question? Put the shoe on the other foot, so to speak. Do you want to ask us a question about this?
About EDI? Yeah. What would you like to, so Sean, what would you like to, so you've mentioned about the perception that's coming out of EDI, the negative perception. What else would you like us to, or how would you like us to message it?
Just search for brilliance. I think you stop worrying about it being young. You stop worrying about it being female. You stop worrying about it male or whatever it is. And I think you run a campaign which is based around looking for the right technicians, and forget all about all of that. And I think techs would absolutely get behind that. And all of a sudden you would get techs, because at the minute, like, the truth is most of them are switched off to it. They just think it's something that you're doing because it's a bit of a buzzword and blah, blah, blah. But I think all of a sudden you start going to your pal. Do you know what it is? I think you'll be good at this. Well, that's a male or a female, whether they're young or old. You start looking for them opportunities, don't you? Start going, actually, I think you'd be good at this. I think you'd suit it. You ever thought about this? It's not what you think it is. Have a campaign based around making people aware of how interesting, how varied, how diverse, how many different opportunities there is for you. Got a message for Rent-A-Kill lad this week. He said about the podcast, and he said, it's great for us, he said, because we are so insular. He said, we do not know about the world outside of Rent-A-Kill. Do you know what I mean? Like, and they're looking at the people who might fill that boots, but all of a sudden, if we can start to really champion not female pest controllers, not male pest controllers, if we champion truly the best of the best, the people who really, really epitomize pest control, and then when women get nominated for that, you know that they've been nominated because they're the best, not because they're a woman. Because it feels like at the minute, you know, you looked at the Pest Awards and it's like, you're like, fucking hell, it's just it is wokey-dokey, innit? There's no getting around it. Like, it's absolutely no getting around it. You can feel it. So that's what turns people off. And like, you're like, whatever. Like, but I honestly believe that we need to look at the skill set that people need.
Alex, same question to
Same
you.
question. Okay.
Same
Sean's been
question.
talking so long. Remind me what the exact question is there.
That's funny. I can't remember my own question now.
It was, what would you like to see coming out of the BPCA?
Was it the BPCA or the EDI committee?
EDI.
I would love to see, you know, again, we're talking about data driven and the rest of it. I'd love to see this data, because Sean and I have had this conversation before, which is there a dearth of, let's just say, women in our industry, or is it as a result of, you know, is this sort of like imbalance in the people in our industry as a result of a lack of perception, a lack of understanding, or just a lack of want to be here? Because they're three very different things. And so the data that comes out of that to actually say, yeah, if it is, you know, if it's a lack of want to be here, then we don't push people to be here. If it's a lack of understanding about this, then we educate people. If it's a lack of perception, then we, you know, we show people, we shine the light on the industry. But the thing is before we choose what we need to do, if it's this over here, then we're flogging a dead horse. But if it's either of these two, then we have a long way to go. But we have a path which is going to be beneficial. And that's what I'd like to see, those kind of studies brought to the floor, because I think actually it would let a lot of technicians who are looking in on this actually understand that, yeah, you know, it's nothing that we're doing. It's simply just a thing that is occurring, and we can all be a part of this journey, and we can all help, and we can find more people in our search for brilliance to fill those seats. So that's what I'd like to see.
Here's a thought: if the BPCA know who are providing the level 2s, not the safe use shite, the proper level 2s, could we get everyone who sits the level 2 to complete a questionnaire? And in a short space of time, you could have it. You'd have to write it in such a way where everyone was happy with the questions, but you could literally start getting a hold of them, couldn't you, at source?
Yeah. I think that would be something to do with RSPH, wouldn't it, Alex? Probably.
At that point, because if you do it exclusively through the BPCA, you'd have an inherent bias.
No, but I mean, no, it's not rocket science. You've got Killgerm, you've got Pelsis, you've got Rat Pack, you've got BPCA, you've got a couple of independents. There's a list of maybe 10 people who are actually going to provide you with a level 2. You could easily send them a thing saying, if we send you this on the course, could you ask them to fill this in? And I'm sure nearly every single one of them would say that's a great idea.
We can ask that, you know, it's the party committee. We can only ask, and they can only say that's a great idea, or no, GDPR says that we're not going to give that information to you. Yeah, okay, but I don't know what it is, but we can ask, and I'm sure Julia will ask. Yeah.
I have got a link to someone that sits on the RSPH. So yeah,
Full of good ideas. I'm supporting you, Julia.
Sorry.
Said I'm full of good ideas. I'm supporting you. Yeah, good on it.
But you're right about the data. You are right about the data. Yeah. Like there's a real lack of data in the industry.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, you joke about Sean saying I'm supporting, I'm here for you, but it's this whole conversation comes around, isn't it? It's about this understanding of what this thing is, and there's such a fundamental misunderstanding of what this messaging is, and unfortunately, as Julia says, because there's been a lot of misappropriation of the term, of the whole sort of concept of DEI, that when it's actually used for its intended purpose, people don't see that search for brilliance. They just see, as you said before, female firefighter refusing to lift a man up in a burning building, and that's the thing that they fixate on, not the actual true message of it. So hopefully those you know, ladies and gentlemen listening to this tonight, will be a little bit clearer on this, and, you know, be a bit more understanding, and assist. Anyway, have you enjoyed your time on the podcast, Julia?
I have. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Can I just say I've loved having you on, and I know you might think I'm being antagonistic. I'm not. I ask these questions because I've got a genuine interest in it, like a genuine interest in it. And I would love to see the data. I'd love to see how we make this industry better. Like a really genuine in that. It's very close to my heart. I love it. And if we can get more women and more young people in, and that's the way forward, I would absolutely support it 100%.
Good answer.
Yeah, give us a shameless plug. Give us a shameless plug. Anything.
Oh, anything. Well, it's got to be for the BPCA committee, isn't it? So the more input we have, the better it is.
I just love the fact that your boss is going to be over the moon. He's going to be like, you literally could have plugged our business at that point. You could have told them about all the good work we done and the services we offer. You try to get people on a committee.
Oh, I forgot all about Orkin. Whoops.
Yeah, Orkin. Yeah, if you want to, Orkin, they're hiring.
Last one. Who would you like to see on Beauties and Beasties? Who would you like to see on next to go through the grill, go through the gritstone?
That is a good question. I would like to see some people that work in wildlife, actually. Yeah, I'm interested in the wildlife, the way we manage wildlife, because I think that's a potential problem for us moving forward.
We've had a...
What are you doing?
I'm just waiting, Alex. Someone wrote a piece. I knew he'd take it down, so I'm having a bit of table tennis. Wildlife. That's interesting.
We've had a couple of good wildlife folks on, actually, from ranging all the way from wildlife management all the way to sort of like conservation. So yeah, have a look at the back catalogue of that. Was there any particular bit of wildlife that you were looking for? Because I think we were looking for someone to talk a bit more in depth about urban foxes, weren't we? Because that's, yeah,
urban foxes. That's very, very emotive. It's a really emotive subject, and how we manage the perception of pest control in conjunction with urban foxes, which a lot of people love.
We take a few out. We're more than happy to knock them on the head. Like, it doesn't. Truthfully, that doesn't bother me in the slightest. But I'm trying to think of Mr. Stewart from Pelsis does a good talk on them, doesn't it? Oh yeah, there's another good one. Sarah Miles shooting is coming up. She's a lady in stalking who does a lot of that sort of stuff. She's good. And
I have to say, there we go. Next week we do have a very special guest, someone we've been trying to get on for a little while now. We have Nigel Cheesewright from Crew. So if you guys remember, we had Alan Buckle, the exiting Crew chairman, come on, and now we have his replacement sounds like a horrible word. We have his successor coming on, Nigel Cheesewright. He'll be able to speak to us about what Crew's doing now. So if you guys want to talk to him specifically around the 3 CPD points that you need year on year now, he'll be the gentleman to ask as to how that initiative came about. But with that, I think that brings us to a bit of a close tonight, doesn't it? So with that, I'm going to say goodbye.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on.
Good night.
God bless.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Beauties and Beasties podcast.